Cities came about because towns grew bigger, and towns came about because villages grew bigger. There's always been a need to expand the spaces that we live in, and cities have become more dense, but they've become larger. To get around these spaces, what we've created are transit systems. Transit systems aren't new, they've always existed, but they've existed in different forms. You had the Hackney carriages in London that were horse drawn to now Hackney carriages being taxis. But what makes a good transit system?
J'aime beaucoup la danse.
Can everyone use the system? Certain people have certain accessibility needs, and if certain people can't use the system, is that transit system worth making? Is it worth having in a city? There are many people who are disabled who can't climb stairs or can't go downstairs or can't step up onto a bus or can't get onto a car like any other able bodied person would be able to. Those things need to be factored in. Even for able bodied people, is it user friendly? Is it something that everyone can access? Accessibility also covers how you get to it. There are stations that are in the middle of nowhere. There are stations that are very hard to get to, very hard to see. And all of that plays into accessibility. How accessible is that mode of transport?
J'aime beaucoup la danse.
Coverage isn't just about covering a city, it's about effectively covering a city. It's about making a transit system that covers a city sensibly. Obviously, you're not going to create a transit system that goes to every single street and town in a city, but you have to create a sensible, modelled transit system that works for most people in the city. Buses supplement this. Buses in London supplement this pretty well, but in other parts of the world where systems aren't covered properly, buses can't supplement those, and bus systems actually outside of London are pretty bad.
J'aime beaucoup la danse.
This takes me on to my next point, and it's about connectivity. How easy is it for you to get from one mode to another mode? A lot of systems in the world are unified. They're under one banner, under one corporation, under one entity. So in London, it'll be TfL. In Paris, it'll be the RATP, probably government owned corporation that owns all of your transport within that city. That means that there is a consistent ticketing system for everyone to use seamlessly. Take the Elizabeth line. It meant that a lot of stations that the Elizabeth line was connecting to got station rebuilds, they got interiors rebuilt, and connection was more seamless. The Victoria line was a good example of this as well. When the Victoria line was first introduced, it introduced cross-platform interchanges at many stations that didn't have it before, like Stockwell, Oxford Circus, and Finsbury Park. You can even take this a step further and take it to when you've left a transit system and you want to get onto a bus or get onto a train. This here makes it easy for you to do because you've got all your money on this and it just means you have to tap in and tap out and you don't have to buy an extra ticket. Everything is connected properly and connections are made seamlessly.
J'aime beaucoup la danse.
All of the stuff I explained earlier is all well and good, but if people can't afford it, then they can't afford it, they can't use it. What's the point? I believe a good transit system has to be subsidised. We're moving towards that actually, in the UK, especially where we had a period of privatisation in every single facet of our transportation system. London was the framework for this. TfL is a government owned corporation that operates all of the transport systems in London. Manchester is doing this as well, based on the TfL model of transport ownership. Before buses in Manchester, they were a disconcerted mess. You had to have separate tickets for separate bus lines because they were all owned by different companies. But under one company, the B Network, that is owned by TfGM, it means that every single bus journey will cost the same amount, £2. So socially owned transit systems are the way forward. It's how most transit systems in the world are now operated. Essentially, what subsidization means is can the people use it without having to think twice? And generally, within the rail network in the UK, people do have to think twice about using a train because of how expensive it is. And TfL, well, TfL is also guilty of this. A lot of people do complain about the price of travel in London, among other things as well. And more subsidization should be present to help people travel for cheaper.
J'aime beaucoup la danse.
This one might not seem that prevalent, but actually it means a lot. If people can't get around your system, then it's not a good system, it's not an effective system. And the way that you maintain your level of consistency with branding is that you rebrand. Take the London Overground. The London Overground in London was a bunch of railways that already existed that nobody was really doing anything with. Trains used to come every half hour, and when there were cancellations, probably every 2 hours. It was bad. The North London line was owned by Silverlink, the South London line was owned by GTR. It was all a mess. What the London Overground did is it unified it all under one system, operated by TfL, using the Oyster card as a ticketing system, which meant that fares were consistent, branding was consistent, and wayfinding was easier. It meant that you can get from one side of London to the other, possibly for cheaper because you wasn't having to go through Zone 1. Nothing was built. Nothing was made. A couple new station buildings maybe, a lick of paint, and suddenly people were using it. That is the story of the London Overground, and that is the miracle of the London Overground. You've also got another system in London, the Superloop, which the routes, some of them, they already existed, but they just needed branding to get people using them. The X26 already existed, and then when it was rebranded into the SL7, given a couple more buses in an hour, people were using it more. People were using it not just to go to Heathrow, but then to just normal towns like Sutton and Kingston. When you rebrand, and when you brand something in the proper way, it means that people don't get confused and people end up using that system. So, what's the best transit system in the world? In my opinion, I think it's Paris. Even though their bus system isn't as good as London's, their railway system is probably the most effective in the world. Paris is something to be modelled after, and their RER system alone, I think, is the greatest triumph in modern transit history. I want to draw attention to this book by Dejan Sudic, I hope I'm saying it right. It's called The Language of Cities, and he, in this book, goes through how transit systems intertwine with cities and how they're essentially a major part. He spoke about the DLR and Canary Wharf and how all of that came to play, and how actually the DLR came before the developments at Canary Wharf. It anticipated the level of service that it was going to get. Obviously, the DLR wasn't sufficient enough, and other forms of transport had to be brought towards the Docklands and into Canary Wharf, like the Elizabeth line and the Jubilee line. But transit systems are essentially a preemption of what can come. Mainly, cities aren't built around transit systems are built around cities. But I actually believe that if the two are built at the same time, connections are made more seamlessly and people have a better idea of how to use that system because they're growing with that system. Don't get me wrong, if you've got a city and it needs to have a metro system in it, you build it. But I also think that if we're creating new cities, a transit system has to be thought of during the process of building that city. And you can never properly, understand the flow of passengers until the flow of passengers come and you understand where people want to go and where they want to go work and where they want to go spend their leisure time or where they want to live. But if you build a system that can preempt those decisions, I think that makes a good transit system.
J'aime beaucoup la danse.
If I'm honest, I wasn't going to make this video at all. I was going to make another video and I'd filmed it and it's there on my SD card. But I didn't even want to make that video. And I sort of thought to myself, I was like, make the videos you want to make. And this was something that I did want to make. And you're going to get a lot of videos that it's just a bunch of random ideas that I've had and I've got. And I feel like I don't explain myself properly. And hopefully that comes better as I make more videos. But yeah, thank you for listening. And I hope you enjoyed. Bit jumpy. Tried, experimented with new shots. Doing too much. Shame off. Anyway, goodbye. See ya.
J'aime beaucoup la danse.